If you've gotten even 50 or 75 pages into Red Mars, and you should have gotten a lot further, you've already noticed that there are multiple viewpoints here, that we're in a tight third person, kind of third person limited narration with 8 sections in which 6 different characters each become our viewpoint character for differing amounts of time. The longest we ride with any one character at a time is with Boone. The shortest is either Frank or the first time or Michel um, in section 4. You've also noticed that all of these characters are imperfect. They all have limited points of view. They're all unreliable in some way. And we are meant to actually see past them. Maya, particularly, we see her thinking through but lying to herself about what she's doing with her 2 boys, right? How she actually splits up this formidable pairing of American astronauts slash politicians by starting a relationship with one, dropping him, and starting one with the other. And she doesn't think that through consciously in a way. In fact, actually being with her helps me feel more forgiving about that. She didn't deliberately do it. She did not deliberately do it. She did it in kind of some kind of deep on some kind of deep strategic level that isn't she doesn't allow fully into consciousness. We see characters misunderstand each other. We see them have part of the truth. One of the lessons here is all of these characters see only part of the truth. This is not a technique that Robinson's inventing, but one he's using very well, where the multiple viewpoints give us a sense that there's a truth that no one perspective has. And even all combined, we don't have the truth itself, we only have these modified pictures. Sometimes we see them be outright wrong. And it's, of course, really worth discussing in our ongoing conversations on Blackboard why these characters and why not other characters. Who's important, who never gets to kind of be the focal point. It's one of the reasons to do this is politics. You've noticed that this is an extremely leftist novel. It's read in all kinds of ways. And, our villainous Phyllis is, a fairly center-right, fairly conventional American or mainstream conservative that the novel's not particularly interested in. We really aren't interested in her point of view. We don't imagine Phyllis in any great depth in this novel. The best defense I can make of that, or impartial defense I can say for Robinson, Phyllis represents a viewpoint that's already well known. That's a baseline. We all know that position, the kind of corporate, let's make money, Christian in a particular way kind of mindset, which some of you might share. The point is Robinson doesn't view it as an alternative to what's going on. He's interested in a range of alternative viewpoints. You see, they all disagree. There's not one left here. They're disagreeing about all kinds of things, and they're all allowed to have their say, and they're all allowed to be partly right. You may gravitate more to some of them than others. None of them is completely right all the time. All of them have a real position that's logical, that's internally coherent. I would also point out not only are these narrators or viewpoint characters limited and flawed, many of them are clinical. 2 of our narrators I'm sorry, they're not narrators. There's no I. They don't speak I. They're third person point of view characters. 2 of our viewpoint characters are clinically depressed, severely clinically depressed for part or all of the section that is presented from their viewpoint. Another, Maya, is clearly bipolar. If you didn't get it while reading her, seeing Michelle treat her a couple sections later, you'll realize that's that person has a bipolar illness. The best adjusted of the 6 major viewpoint characters, Boone, who's relaxed, easygoing, etc., is also clearly a drug addict who becomes progressively more addicted to his kind of future drug as that section goes along. There are none of them, and the viewpoint, because it's third person limited, at some point the narrative voice can even kind of undercut the viewpoint character. It happens actually with Boone. Like, well, Boone always said without thinking too much, or Boone said X, forgetting that he had just argued exactly the opposite. He's inconsistent. That's part of his political method. I want to make a case for why one particular character is well suited to that particular section that's presented from a viewpoint. Maya, who's easy to dislike for some readers because she fits certain feminine stereotypes. She's a crazy, sexy femme fatale. And man, there's already too many of them. First of all, I think the craziest, as I said earlier, seeing the crazy, sexy femme fatale start this love triangle from her point of view is the most generous way to look at it. She's not just some crazy person. She's got a good reason for what she's doing, and she's not insincere. She cares about both these men. She is emotionally bonded to both of them. Those of you who are through with the novel, there are 2 more novels to go, and man, Maya Toitovna is single. That's a scary thought. She is the one who takes us through the actual spaceship voyage from Earth to Mars, and her bipolarity makes her perfectly good for that. It's a moment of both hope and fear, anxiety. The whole crew is a little bipolar because they're living in a kind of mood swing kind of life. It's narrated through a character who is actually extremely emotionally intuitive and who has a wonderful antenna for what the crewmates around her are feeling. She's sensitive to group dynamics. She's not a bad politician at all. And she's extremely attuned to other people's emotional responses. You can call her highly emotional. You can't call her emotionally unintelligent. She's not just wrapped up in her feelings. She's very sensitive about others and can use that to her advantage and to others' advantage. We need her sense of group dynamics. Think about what happens if you narrate that through Nadia. Nadia, who is more of a stoic character, Nadia, who's more straight ahead, Nadia, who, though deeply bonded with Maya, doesn't really want to listen to all of these nuances, doesn't really want to get into that, and who at the beginning of her own section, Nadia's own section, isn't particularly interested in aesthetics. Great motive. Nadia characterization is like she's eating cereal from freeze-dried milk, and there's a princess. It tastes just the same. That's clearly not true. It tastes just the same to Nadia because Nadia is not making certain kind of distinctions, at least at this point in her journey. So letting the kind of very emotional, somewhat libido-driven, instinctive viewpoint character be the person who leads us through who introduces us to the group dynamics of this 100 or 101 people is very much suited to Robinson's artistic purposes. Think about why the others narrate or are viewpoint characters for what they are viewpoint characters for.